This is the NJ Lacrosse Podcast. Welcome to episode 3 of the 2026 season. You will notice that Gil Swenson, not present for episode 3 and 4, otherwise indisposed, because that's what happens when you own the company. You have other meetings you have to take. So he had to run out on us for our top 20, or the first part of our top 20 episode. But by my side, the legendary Rutgers Prep assistant coach Bill Tharp, and pretty much do everything, Anthony Terranova. Boys, how we doing?
I don't like this 2-on-1 thing now. I need to.
Why do you feel double teamed?
It was actually usually 3-on-1, to be honest with you.
I know, but you two have this now that you guys are you work very intimately together. Now it's like you already had a thing for Nova, but now it's a lot deeper.
Well, I got to comment on our intimacy.
It's just. I feel very isolated now. I need Gil back.
How do you I have this belief. This is not even bullshit. If we could convince Tharp to ref, it would change his life, in so many different ways.
Yeah, it would, but he couldn't do it.
You don't think?
No chance.
What do you think the main things that we holding him back are?
A few things. One, I think his impartiality with everything. He's going to have some type of bias. Whether it's he knows the coach, he knows the players. His understanding of the rules I don't think are as good as he claims them to be.
Though apparently we're going to have an overtime podcast to settle that, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I might get 100. Has anyone ever gotten 100?
Yeah,
yes,
I get 100 every year.
Oh, because you guys cheat. That's right.
No,
it's not actually a test.
I do not take the test.
Do you ever take the test bookless?
I always take the test bookless.
What do you get?
100.
Prove it.
This year I got an 82.
Yeah.
The test was so messed up.
That's true. So
I think
that's another story for another time for the podcast.
I think we really buried the lead. We didn't get to talk about this with Gil. Your life changed in the off season.
How's that?
You can see now.
I can see now. Do you want me to go into this? Is that what we should do?
I don't know. Just it's nice to know that people. If you know how they do those class action lawsuits. If you ever felt if you ever thought that Keith Glock messed up a game of yours before, you may be entitled to compensation. So, I don't know from who, but someone.
Those of you, nobody would know this, but I wore contact lenses the same way that many people do. But the contact lenses that I wore from the time that I was in second grade were very, very high. If I wore glasses all the time, you'd be horrified. You would have been horrified because of the Coke bottle nature of my glasses. And my contacts were these scleral contact lenses that corrected a very, very, very difficult eyesight situation. And they were difficult contacts to manage because my eyes needed to stay not dry, and sometimes if my eyes got a little dry, I used to call it progressive cataracts. I would get a gray kind of film over my eyes. So I'd be dumping, sustain into my eyes to try to keep my contacts wet. And it was tough. I couldn't really see, if you can imagine this, without contacts or glasses, if I were to wake up in the morning, I couldn't see my watch. That's just how bad my vision was. I couldn't see far away. I couldn't see close up. It's just how I was born. And for the first 45 years of my life with a couple of months, that's my reality. And then I got 3 surgeries over that right at the end of the summer that have, to Tharp's point, changed my life. And it's trying not to be emotional about it, but it's if you were me and you knew what I would have to do every day just to see anything, to be able to wake up and open my eyes and look at the clock and know what time it is, that's a life-changing event. So yeah, am I seeing better than I've ever seen in my life? Yeah. Should that scare everybody out there that plays lacrosse? Yeah, because
especially if you're 10-man ride.
It's Ritalin right now for me, my eyeball Ritalin. But yeah, boy, I could do a 10-man ride video.
Don't be the defender that tries to get over that midfielder.
Can't have it right now.
That can't happen on Glock right now.
So no, thank you for saying that. I do feel great, and it wasn't cheap. I'll tell you that right now. It was not cheap to do it, but worth every penny, and I would have paid, honestly, double what I did pay to have this happen, because it's pretty freaking awesome. So thanks for that. Today, the beginning, the first half, if you will, and I will, of our top 20. numbers 20 through 11 in our state rankings as we preview the 2026 boys lacrosse season for high school in the state of New Jersey. Before we get to that, though, because it was something that we should have talked about with Gil that we didn't, but I want your guys' feedback on. Kirst Cup last year utilized the shot clock. And as we record this right now, and this is not going to change by the time it airs, Matt Kovacek, the head coach at Del Barton, along with the athletic director at Del Barton, have appeared in front of the NJSIAA twice thus far, once in December and then once again last month in January. And they presented to committees where it was a proposal for not next season, so the 2027 season, not that season, but the 2028 season, beginning with 2028, that should the NFHS allow a shot clock to be something that comes in permanently as a rule, that the state of New Jersey would also adopt that as a rule. And to clear the first two hurdles, a big deal. And now we just have the general membership meeting in May where that will be voted on. And if you care passionately about this, you should contact the NJSIAA and let them know about it. But most importantly, you should contact the athletic director of the township in which you live, because that is who is going to be voting. Could be the athletic director, could be the principal, could possibly be the superintendent, depending on who the representative is from the district in which you live that represents that school in the general membership committee. But somebody from every school district in the state of New Jersey is eligible to attend that meeting in May at the NJSIAA and vote on whether or not the shot clock should be allowed in 2028. And it's basically a simple majority. If 51% of the people in the room say yes, then in 2028, we're going to a shot clock in the state of New Jersey. And that's going to be the same exact thing for basketball and lacrosse. They were not proposed jointly, but both of the people who proposed those things have both cleared the first two hurdles. So I throw it out to you guys to say, talk to us about how you thought the shot clock went in the Kirst Cup and where you think, should we have it? What your general thoughts?
I think the general thought is we need the shot clock in lacrosse. That's a lot of the things that we're doing. A large majority of kids that play lacrosse don't end up playing in college, but the ones that do, it's a preparation, and that's a lot of the kids that we're talking to on this podcast for sure. It's something that's needed. It makes the game faster. It makes the game better. It makes the official's job easier in a lot of ways, and I think it's something that we certainly need. I know Tharp earlier, when we started to go over this, thinks that it's not going to happen, that we're not going to get the numbers to support it. But I think we all agree that we want it and we need it, and it's something that's very important, I think, in the game of lacrosse to continue to advance lacrosse, and we're starting to see other states have it as well and bring it to the forefront. The MIAA from Maryland has it, New York had it, going last year. With some nuances and some things that they need to correct and fix, and I think they're working through. But at the end of the day, I think it was still, everyone felt that was a positive move, at least in the right direction. So I think it's something that's definitely needed. And again, I just hope it ends up passing. You have better boots on the ground than I do, but at the end of the day, like you said, it comes down to majority, and we only have so much say, and we only are so many connections. We don't know all the ADs, in the world. We know the coaches, but not too many ADs.
Excuse me. Yeah, I agree. I think the other piece of this is there's two things. One, we are lucky enough that we are coming from a world, you've coached at, Montgomery and Seton Hall. Excuse me. I've coached at Pingree and Rutgers Prep and even Princeton High School, that are the more higher end schools. There's a lot of lacrosse that's just not at that level in New Jersey. And, like Keith said, it's got to be a majority. And, for every Del Barton and Seton Hall and Pingree and whatever, there's go on lax numbers, right? Go to that bottom half. And I fear that there is a very easy crutch to lean on that comes back to money. People are going to cite money. They're going to cite financial reasons. And I just think that, there's too many coaches, there's too many ADs that are just going to defer to the budget and the bottom line. Anybody who's paying attention to what's going on in the state of New Jersey right now, quite frankly, athletics, in general are in a crisis in terms of these budgets. I saw a headline the other day. Jefferson School District is threatening to dissolve athletics. Robbinsville, my hometown, I know there's a vote coming up about, if this doesn't pass, like they're going to dissolve athletics. I think we are at such a juncture right now.
Wait, back up what?
Yeah, like because of the budget, they're short like $5 million in the budget. So they're putting to a vote. If they don't get this addition, they're going to try and raise taxes.
Referendum, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know how true. I don't know how much of this is people in the superintendent's office like trying to scare tactic, but there are people out there saying if we don't get these if we don't increase our budget, we're going to have to drop our athletic programs. We're going to have to drop our music programs. And I think no program should be cut. I think that it's athletics. I think it's theater. I think it's music. None of those things should be cut. But right now, that's the reality. And I guess it's due to, how the state does their budgeting in terms of, who qualifies for extra aid or whatever. So I think it is going to come down to the ADs are going to vote based on whatever their business administrators tell them to do, or you're going to have these coaches who are, one season coaches who don't know any better and are not going to be passionate enough one way or another. But I think that's what it's going to come down to.
I think realistically, though, the technology needed to have 2 shot clocks is not that expensive. Glock, what are your thoughts on 1 shot clock at the midline?
I think I'll give you a reality, like a real situation that came out of meeting number 1, because I was asked to, luckily I didn't need to participate in meeting number 1 because it passed pretty easily. But I attended the first meeting of the advisory committee to the NJSIAA in case anybody had questions about whether or not the officials could implement, officiating a shot clock, which I clearly think we can. The concern initially was from a couple of the superintendents who were involved in the room, and one of them I'll use by name because he's somebody who was at Montgomery who I know and trust, and I think is I don't think he would mind, although I may be screwing myself here because I didn't ask him, but I don't think I'm telling tales out of school when I say the superintendent at Watchung Hills, Warren Hills right now, Chip Clymer, who was a former vice principal at Montgomery High School, a guy who is like about as pro-student as anybody that I've ever met in my life. He said, I can't vote for this in the way that it's written right now, but you guys have the ability to amend this so that it doesn't institute next year, that it's, you need to give me another year. Do I think that lacrosse and basketball should have a shot clock? I do, but my budget is due right now, because if you give me 2 years, I can find the money. And that's Warren Hills. Warren Hills is a small district, right? Budgets are tighter in the smaller districts. So, we know that. And obviously I understand for everybody that hears this and goes, oh, it's about the state formula. I know, I work in a school, I know the realities of the state formula. It's different for everybody. But as a general reality, right, if you give somebody 2 years and it's something that they believe in, they can find the money. Okay, so do I think that, to answer your question, between 1 versus 2, it's a negligible amount of money that I don't think matters, and you have 2 years to find the money. I think it's a totally doable item. So saith the superintendents that I think matter and care about kids, and that's my thought. We can do it.
Do you think the game is safer with the shot clock?
Safer. I don't know that the shot clock. Well, all right, no. There's one particular situation that I think makes the game safer with a shot clock. The mandatory keep it in the last 2 minutes. I hate. Well, and I'm glad that's where you.
I was praying.
Yeah, it's as a member of the the national committee, it's a rule I proposed to change and take out the last couple of years, and it keeps getting voted down because the answer is that we have to give away for the defense to be able to stay in the game at the end, and my answer would be play better for the first 46 minutes of the game, but the last 2 minutes of the game, the mandatory keep it in is like basically
free for all.
Yeah, like you see slash. How many times do you see a mandatory keep it in where you don't have somebody whack the crap out of somebody?
Yeah.
Right.
There's always a penalty in that situation. So yeah, do I think it puts the offensive players at risk? Something we talk about in officials huddles. If it's a 1-goal game and I say, like, hey, make sure it's a good foul, but you better protect white here. You know what I mean? You better protect green. Whoever's got the ball, right? Because we know that defenders just take liberties in those last 2 minutes. So yeah, do I think the shot clock makes it safer? And when it comes to that, yeah, sure. I'll live there. I do want to move on, though, because I want to. We're 15 minutes in here, and I want to get to the real meat and potatoes of this episode, which is the front half of our top 20, numbers 20 through 11. As we get set here for the 2026 Boys Lacrosse season, you're obviously getting this episode today, and you're going to get our top 10, numbers 10 through 1, a week from today, which is the first day that anybody is allowed to play games. In the season. I don't know if anybody's going to play a game without playing a scrimmage, but you're certainly entitled to, so that's why we scheduled it the way that we did, so that your top 10 will be released on March 16th. And let's start with number 20. Nova, kick us off. Ramapo.
Number 20, we have Ramapo. Yes, we do. Ramapo, what we got here? For Ramapo, they had a really good season last year. I think they finished 14-5, and they returned pretty much a good amount of starters. They got Will Goldstein. They have one of the best 28 goalies in the state, maybe the country, in Frisco. Cole Cipher committed to Vermont. Gold, who's a returner, who's going to do a lot of really good things. Who's maybe their most explosive offensive player last year. So I expect a lot of really good things from Ramapo. The only time Ramapo ran into trouble is when they're playing top 10 teams for the most part. And, they got to play Bosco twice every single year for the most part. So I think if they could just find ways to make those games closer or find a way to, find success, that's a team that can absolutely move up. But all the other teams outside of those, that little onslaught of schedules they have, I think there's like a 5-game stretch they have where they play all top 10 teams, and the rest of the schedule after that's pretty light. So I think they'll, we'll learn about them very early in the season, but they're definitely a team that's going to be knocking on the playoff door, state championship door at the end of the year here.
Certainly a program with a lot of great history. Number 19, Coach Tharp, take us through number 19, certainly one of the darlings of the 2025 lacrosse season.
Yeah, Glen Ridge coming in at number 19. I think, I think there's some meat on the bones left here for them to not be a one-year wonder. Obviously, last year, being the hunter is a lot different than being the hunted. So, it'll be interesting to see how they respond, to being teams coming after them. I heard a lot of great things last year about their head coach, Anthony Sicoli. I apologize if I messed that up. Heard a lot of great things about him as a coach, as a mentor, super motivational. So, he's going to be doing his thing as a coach. They bring back Jimmy Benson, who is arguably one of the best players in the state of New Jersey. Dominant force as a two-way midfielder. Had 61 points last year, 110 ground balls. Faced off at about 50%. Not the full-time face-off guy. I think he's a guy who they throw up there to kind of muck it up. But Jimmy Benson's a name to know. Is a really underrated player. I love his game. Also bring back Carson Ross, who had 58 points last year, and they returned their goalie, Keeler Goodwin. So he finished last year with 242 saves. So the pieces are there. It looks like, they graduated a decent amount defensively. But, we thought, combined with what they did last year, and, still having some of those pieces back that, they're worthy of a top 20 spot.
The first of what I always feel like kind of are two teams that kind of feel linked. And this one I feel like is going to spark a little bit of controversy, Nova, in terms of the Shore Conference, because they've kind of been 1-2, 1-1A, whatever route you want to talk about them. But a team that's developed a lot of history over the last 20 years at number 18 is?
Rumson Fairhaven. Rumson Fairhaven had an up and down season. They started a little bit slow. They really picked it up towards the end of the season, getting some big time wins. And I think they lose some key pieces on the defensive side, but they definitely have the offensive firepower, from Britt Lumsden to Luke Lydon, a BU commit, to the Weishaupt brothers. Like, they can absolutely put the ball in the back of the net. The key for them is, are they going to be able to get stops consistently when it matters most against some of those top teams that they're going to play in the state. One of the most tenured, coaches of all time, definitely a Hall of Famer. So they have that always going for them, and they're going to figure it out at the end of the day.
Number 7. Oh, you got some
No,
there, Tharp?
Three major defensive commits in the 27 class, too. Yep. I think Princeton, Virginia. I'm missing one there, but 3 really, really high level commits there.
Yeah, the Danny Sullivan is Virginia, and John Pack, Princeton, LSM.
And you know what? I think some of that too is a function of Rumson being one of the educationally public schools in the state that just gets it done. So kudos to them. As we move on here, number 17, we go up to North Jersey, Coach Tharp. 17 is
the Crusaders of Bergen Catholic. Bergen Catholic definitely graduated some key pieces last year, especially on the defensive end. Jack Walker, I know, was a standout defenseman for them, and their goalie, Rocco Venezia, super high level. But they bring back some really, really high octane pieces offensively, especially at attack. Trey Taramina and Easton Tedesco are 2 studs on the offensive end for them. They have Joseph Angeli at the LSM defensive spot for them as well. He is a major standout. They're a team that's gotten a little better every year. Coach Frankie Feaster does a really good job. They have some high-level assistant coaches as well. I think Bergen's a team that's kind of good at every sport, and lacrosse is no different. So they were super relevant, and they kind of fell off a little bit. And I think they're going to continue to claw their way back to being that top 20 team.
Nova creating bragging rights here at the second half of that short conference pairing. Number 16, you have.
We have Manasquan. Manasquan with the state championship last year. That's why they're high on our list. But they lose a ton of guys. It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of reload. That we might have them a little bit high in some cases here. But when you win a state championship, we got to give you the nod and see what you can bring. They got some key returners. They got Jack O'Reilly. He's midi going to Cornell. They got Lucas Longo, Middlebury. Jax Klein, midi going to Quinnipiac. So they definitely still have some pieces in the arsenal, but they do lose a lot of guys. They lose a lot of scoring power. So it's going to be early on. Do we rank them too high? Should they be ranked? Again, if you win a state championship, you deserve to be on our list. But they definitely have something to prove to a lot of the people in New Jersey to start the season off.
As we move into the central part of the state, at number 15, Coach Tharp, you have.
Scotch Plains. I love this team. I think they're kind of could be one of our darlings this year. They return over 81% of their scoring from last year. They did lose their face-off guy, Ryan Maurer. He is at Brown now. But they had a really strong freshman last year, Nate Filler. Expect him to fill in as a sophomore. But they return a lot of other really, really high-level pieces. Nick Homer, Colin Konachowicz. I believe they're both committed to.
You want to spell that?
Nice Polish last name there. Committed to. I believe they're both going to Hobart. The Scarpa brothers, Connor and Ryan, and Caleb McDowell is a stud defenseman for them, committed to Yale. Some questions in goalie. I think last year they played 2 goalies. They split time. Joseph Maraska graduated, so they do bring back Matt Krantz, who was just a hair over 50%, but with a stud face-off guy, a stud defenseman, and some really high-level offensive pieces. I think Scotch Plains is going to make Group 3 North super high level this year.
As we break down through the top 15 into number 14, one of the most storied programs in the state, Nova.
Westfield. Westfield. Time and time again, they just got it done. They just have enough players that they're always going to be a kind of reload. They're never a team that has to kind of rebuild. So they got they're going to be led by Coley Wallman going to Cornell. Harrison, a Hobart commit. Ben Seward is an LSM going to Stevens, but he was scoring a goal, pretty much every single game. I think he had 2 goals against Seton Hall. So they have guys that can put the ball in the back of the net. They return other defensemen as well. So they should be able to figure it out pretty quickly. That's why we kind of have them so high on the list. But at the same time, they do lose some massive goal scorers. Garrett Ferguson, we crowned the best inside finisher the state's ever seen in a long time. And Cody Lamb, all those guys. So they have to definitely figure out some pieces on the offensive side of the ball, but they still return enough guys that they're going to be able to compete with anybody in the state.
I think Westfield's super unique too, in the sense of they're I was talking to someone about Westfield, they're like a lacrosse mecca in New Jersey, and they have guys who've sat on JV for 2 or 3 years who might not be household names, but they can play. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop. But goalie's going to be huge for them. Graduated a 3 or 4 year starter in Corey Guilford. So they're going to have the pieces, but it's going to be interesting who's the day 1 starter, especially in net.
It's funny you say that about the schools with the guys that have kind of stuck it through the program and they play JV and they, you kind of grind a little bit there. That's like not the way anymore, right? Like if I'm not playing, well, I'm going to go to a private school or I'm going to do this. And, there's a couple programs throughout the state where that still sticks. Westfield, Summit, these where you learn the system, you learn the value of the hard work and like seeing what happens in the guys ahead of you. So I completely agree. So if Westfield's old money, there's a new money team at number 13, Tharp.
Yeah, the Fighting Anthony Terranovas, Kingsway. Kingsway, like we said, they graduated Keegan Borowski, who had an incredible year last year with 105 points, but that's it. That offensively at least. Colden Nick is their top returning defenseman. He's committed to Rutgers. There's a player, Quinn Winters, who Nova and I were at Garden State Cup last year. Led the South team to the underclassmen championship, was an absolute stud. So I think he's a guy who could step in and contribute right away. But that doesn't even account for guys like Owen Daughtry, Michael Conklin, Mason Bryan, and then Patrick Citravis just committed to go to Hobart. He's in the 2027 class. So, Glock, I know you and I last year had a long conversation like, can Kingsway keep this up? The answer is yeah. I think the one thing I'll say, they do also have a very strong goalie, John McEntee. I think the one thing I will say is, Nova kind of touched on this, a little disappointed in their schedule. I think, for Kingsway, and this is no disrespect to the other teams in Group 4 South, I think for me it's them and Southern, and that's it. I think Southern's going to be very good this year. They were an honorable mention team for me. But, they play Shawnee this year. They play Ridley from Pennsylvania. They added Moorestown to the schedule. But, there's not a ton of meat on that schedule. And I think that, when they're as good as we think they're going to be, and like I said, quite frankly, their schedule is going to come down to one day in June against probably Southern. You want to really battle test yourself. Now, that being said, they do play Shawnee. They play Moorestown right at the end of their schedule. So I wish, I think they really have a shot to give the Group 4 North winner, whoever that is, a game. I would have liked to see them beef up that schedule just a little bit.
Absolutely would like to see them beef up that schedule. You have a good team. Beat that schedule up, take losses. It's okay to lose games, but you need to know what you need to be, where you're going to get exposed on. They played Westfield in the state championship, they got exposed. Right. They couldn't score, they couldn't do anything. It's because they played a good team that could actually stop them. It's okay. What are you going to do when you're playing a team that can actually stop you? Right. You need to be able to know that. If you're throwing up 15 goals every game, okay, great, good. And like I said, I think when they played Shawnee, I was actually at that game, I was on that game. Shawnee treated it like it was just another game, they didn't really care. Kingsway treated the energy on that sideline was literally state championship game sideline, and it showed in the scoreboard. They went up early, often, and Shawnee couldn't recover. And I think they need to have more of those games and not just all of a sudden, okay, hey, I'm going through my whole schedule. I don't think Southern's going to really give them much to handle. Okay, here's Westfield, here's what Bridgewood again in the final, and I think the same result's going to happen if they still have time to beat that schedule, but they're not going to be able to make the adjustments. They're not going to be able to kind of see the things that they're doing wrong, the bad habits that they're actually getting when they're kind of going through these schedules and they're kind of beating up on a few of these teams that they're quite probably going to beat up on a few of these teams because they are a very talented team.
And like we said, going back to the PowerPoint conversation, teams would want to play Kingsway.
Oh yes, because they're going to have massive points because they play average schedule.
Yeah, no doubt. And I want to, next week when we start talking about, numbers 10 through 1, it's funny that you bring up Shawnee about a scheduling perspective. I want to get into Shawnee's schedule a little bit. We'll spend a little bit of time on that because I think it's completely relevant to exactly what you're talking about here with Kingsway. But when you look at what Shawnee's schedule is compared to what Kingsway's schedule is, you're going to be able to see the differences. And we'll move to number 12, Nova, as we go back to the old money up in North Jersey. Number 12 is...
Old money, Ridgewood, baby. Ridgewood, for my top 20, I have them a little bit lower than we have them here. They got a lot of guys they got to fill in. They lose a massive defensive hole that they got to fill. They're going to be led by AJ Lasaro for sure, but I think that the thing that has this team so high is they're so athletic. This is probably one of the most athletic teams in the state. The ability to run up down the field, every position, you're not going to be like, oh, that kid's a little slow-footed. Oh, that kid's not fast. Every single kid on the field is fast, athletic, probably I didn't do my homework, but probably a multi-sport type athlete. Like they're just grinders in what they're trying to do, and paired with the stick skills that they have, some of the playmakers that they do have in certain positions on the field is probably why they're so high and why they're going to probably have success, and why I think we have them a little bit higher than Westfield right now. Because again, if you're an athlete and you can get up and down the field in the game of lacrosse and 48-minute game, generally good things are going to happen.
At number 11, the last team we're going to talk about today, and I've said this for years and years and years since anybody cared about what I had to say, was I don't care what happens during the season. I don't care what their record is. I don't care where you are. But if you play this team on May 1st, you better be afraid of whatever is going to happen because of how well coached they are. The number 11 team in the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast Top 20, Coach Tharp, is?
Bridgewater, Raritan, they're you talk about old money. It doesn't get much more old money than Bridgewater. One of the stalwarts in Group 4, one of the stalwarts in the Skyline Conference. I think that they definitely graduated some pieces. Andrew Childs, they lose Brady Millets, Brody Nussman, so they definitely lose some pieces. Nick D'Esio, but they bring back their top returning offensive player in Declan Cordilla, who's committed to Rutgers, and then Jack Cifuentes, who's committed to Air Force. But probably the player that I'm really excited is probably arguably the most underrated goalkeeper in all New Jersey, and that's Reed Feinstein. I don't. If you didn't watch Bridgewater play last year, he's phenomenal. I think by the end of the season he ended up earning first team All Group 4, which is great. He's a super talented goalie. Mikey Bradis is a top-level defenseman for them. And then they have a super, super talented sophomore, Will Childs. So, again, Glock, you're right. They looking at it, it's hard to bet against, some of those pieces. What Matt and Chuck have done there for years, and Alan Cordilla and those guys. It's just you're going to get great coaching. They're a little weaker at the face-off X. They do return their starter from last year, but man, like you said, that's a team you don't want to see in the postseason. And you combine that with an awesome goalie and some nice athletes in the middle of the field. I think right now they're the slight favorite in Group 4 North.
As we put the capper on episode 3 of the 2026 season of the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast, let me recap numbers 20 through 11 for you. At number 20, Ramapo. 19 is Glen Ridge. 18, the Bulldogs of Rumson Fairhaven. 17, Bergen Catholic. 16th ranked, we have Manasquan. 15, Scotch Plains. Westfield is 14. Kingsway from South Jersey is 13. Ridgewood at 12 with Mike Pounds, and Bridgewater coming in at number 11. That'll do it for episode 3 of the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast in 2026. Find us next week right back here wherever you get your podcasts as we break down numbers 10 through number 1, all heading in to the first possible day of playing actual games that mean actual things in the state of New Jersey for boys lacrosse. We couldn't be more excited. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week.